Hey there, everyone. Mike Mibach with KTVU FAFSA in the Bay Area. Once again, joined by Winnie Sun, as we always do, usually on Mondays here, Managing Director of Sun Group Wealth Partners. Today, Winnie, is the first day for my children as they start this new academic year, so it's been very quiet. They're downstairs doing a good job, second and fifth grade. But I want to start not with that grade level, but instead college. A lot of students out there are distance learning. When it comes to higher education, what should we know about when it comes to tuition, financial aid, scholarships? Because just parents have talked to are worried that why are we paying this tuition when we're distance learning, and other debates too going on. But I'll just open it up there.
Yeah, Mike, great question. And I'm with you. My kids are in elementary school too, and they are actively learning, but there's many who are now graduating from college or getting close to it, and they're really worried about what college is going to look like, not only this year, but next year as well. And so one of the big things that I think a lot of parents and students should be paying attention to is the upcoming October 1st, which is the first day that you're actually able to file for the free application for federal student aid, or we call it FAFSA. And you probably have seen, if you've been reading financial news, actually all over the news, because one of the controversy surrounding this is aid for the student year of 2021 to 2022.
Mhm.
However, they actually use your 2019 income tax return to be able to help you justify how much financial aid you'll be receiving. So for a lot of parents who maybe in 2019 had still steady income, in 2020 things changed a lot. So this is putting parents in a lot of in a pressure position, and students, on how they're going to be able to justify the need for federal financial aid and state aid and school aid and everything else. So we're really talking about the importance of getting on it and making sure that you literally are ready to apply on October 1st.
I remember, it's funny you mentioned that FAFSA because I used that application a long time ago when I went to university, and I was fortunate enough to get the entire amount that I needed to go to Colorado. But for those individuals who may not get, the amount, they only get 50%. Um, there's still grants out there, scholarships, other avenues that they can try to find that other 50%.
There are, Mike. There are other avenues that you can look for, but what you want to do is you definitely want to file for that FAFSA, like you talked about, on October 1st, because this is usually the gateway not only to federal aid, but grants to work study programs. And if you don't file, you don't receive. So that's key. The other thing we should mention is, like you said, like I was in a similar situation. We had financial challenges. We also had to get a state and federal aid as well. But you have to do your homework, and you can't wait to the last minute. And most importantly, just because it's perhaps, like you said, maybe the school is going to give you 50%, but really you need 100%. There are things that you can do. You want to get your financial records in order. You want to make a case, and you definitely want to be proactive. This is not a situation where you're going to be a happy teenager and hope for the best. You're going to actually have to go reach out to the school of choice and say, this is what I've got. This is why it's not accurate. This is why I need more money.
Yeah.
And really get proactive in this process. And if you find yourself really still short and you can't make it work, then you got to look for a plan B.
And you know what? When it comes to scholarships too, I remember my last year at college, and I was in the journalism school, and someone had told me just apply for a scholarship. There's hundreds of scholarships out there that you probably don't even know about. And so I did, and I wound up getting like an extra, I think it was like a $5,000 scholarship that, and it was like a two-page application. It wasn't even that hard. And so I know there are scholarships out there that students and
Uh,
they should be applying
right.
for.
There
Uh,
are. And yeah,
yeah.
go to SallyMay.com. They actually have a lot of resources on that website.
What about, since we're on the topic of colleges, do you think, and I mentioned tuition, if there are more and more students who maybe are just taking the gap year or they don't want to do this and then pay the amount, or maybe they're pulling out of four-year universities and going to JCs and getting those 60 credits first and save money that way. But do you foresee tuition going down at all at any of these, the major universities across the country as we move through this pandemic?
Unfortunately, we don't see tuition costs going down, although we would love to see them. And we think, obviously you're not getting the full school experience, so therefore tuition should be lower. But unfortunately, many universities, you got to see them as business entities, and they already have decreased in terms of income. And a lot of their income actually comes from tuition from not only yourself and your friends, but also international students. Now, because of the pandemic, they're not getting that additional income. Also, college sports is down, so that's also a big revenue generator. So many of these schools are really stuck in a situation where they understand that you want some relief in terms of tuition, but they can't give it to you. So we're actually seeing that, unfortunately, and a lot of colleges are actually charging full till for your student to stay home and do online learning. So your solution was a good idea. Maybe take a gap year, maybe look at a community college, taking some credits there, a third of the cost, but making sure that those credits absolutely can't transfer over.
So for those of us, you're talking about tuition not going down, who have younger children, grade school. By the time they get to college, I don't even want to think about what tuition may be. But I forget, what's the typical college saving account that I know most people recommend that you start, which I
Mm-hmm.
haven't, but I probably should. We should start saving if we can, putting money away for college down the road here.
Absolutely. Right. So there's different ways you can save. You can obviously use a checking account or savings account, but I prefer in my kids' situation, we definitely use a 529 college savings account. It's actually a state sponsored college saving vehicle, and there's a lot of benefits to it. So it sort of works like a big Roth IRA where you put money in after tax, but it grows 100% tax free if used for higher education. Now, I hear a lot of parents say, well, what if my son or daughter doesn't go to school? Like, what if when they just don't need to, And there's definitely allotments for that as well. It's not like you're going to lose your money. But if they use for higher education, it doesn't actually have to be like traditional studies. Like, for example, I think my second son, I think he would love to be a chef. Most culinary schools can actually receive those monies as well. As long as the school can receive federal aid, then they will accept $529. Plus, if they don't need it, you've already moved money out of your state into your children. So it's another really smart estate planning method. And worst case, Mike, you and I are families, I'm sure my husband wouldn't mind a big chunk of money later on if our kids just don't need the money. But, as you mentioned, and I had the same situation, it's such a good relief to know your parents had something saved away for college, even if it's a small amount. Whatever you can do will make a big difference if your child does attend college.
So that's basically what would be taken out of your paycheck. Is that how you set it up, the 529?
Well, well, there are. So some like for example, I helped set up the college savings corporate 529 plan at DreamWorks Animation back in the day. And so in that case, yes, from your paycheck goes a checking account and then the money's directly into a corporate 529 plan. But most companies still don't have these plans at work. So what you would do is just set up your own college savings plan, have it linked up to your checking account. Then once your paycheck hits your checking account, maybe the next day or the day after, have a portion of that pulled into the 529. Or like I do, I actually just have it set up like once a month. I'll make a contribution to all three of the children. And around the holidays or their birthdays, if there's extra checks that come in from family members, then I can actually send that separately to their college savings. So it gives you a lot of flexibility. And don't discount how much growth this can be, especially since like your kids are similar ages to mine, like the little ones.
Yeah.
With enough time, there's plenty of growth up ahead because they can be nicely diversified, very similar to a 401k plan.
Okay. 401k plan. Speaking of, if you have people who have been switching jobs or they have multiple, do you recommend putting them together and having one joint one, or should you keep them separate here?
So Mike, great question. We've been seeing this question a lot actually on social media. And so here's the thing, if you, like my husband, for example, has always been in IT, and in IT is not uncommon to be changing jobs frequently, like for different disciplines, experience and whatnot. But in that situation, he had different 401ks at different places, which in the past probably wasn't the worst thing that could happen. However, given the pandemic, it's a great idea if you have this situation to consolidate, figure out where your monies are and take a look at how you're investing, because we do know that we are really overdue for a correction. It doesn't mean that it's going to happen just in the next couple months, but it's a good idea to consolidate your 401k, see where everything is, and making sure you don't have overlap, and making sure you have a plan in place so that it can take you not only for the next, the rest of this year, but going forward. You just want to make sure you have everything cleaned up right now on especially those old 401k plans.
A lot of people are concerned about the possibility of taxes going up because our debt here across the country is huge, reaching levels that we haven't seen in decades here. As we prepare for that, what's the recommendation here to people at home um, to
So
save
this
some
is
money?
great, right?
Yeah, before the
Mhm.
taxes hit, how can we prepare for this?
So Mike, great question. I've been talking to clients each and every day, and I always say, so would you agree that we're spending a lot for the pandemic? They say, yes, absolutely. I said, would you agree that more than likely we're going to have to raise taxes? And across the board, I have yet to meet any client or accountant who has told me otherwise. So I think it's reasonable to assume taxes are going higher. So therefore, the strategy right now is really smart one that we just mentioned. We mentioned two of them already. You mentioned the college savings plan, which helps you shelter money that you put away for your kids' college savings. That money is now sheltered and will grow ideally tax-free if used for higher education. Number two, you talked about the 401k, and the 401k is also another way to shelter from taxes, long-term growth, because it's not just sheltering money in the beginning, but each time a stock or a mutual fund issues a dividend, that's now tax sheltered. Every time you get income from a bond or a CD, that's tax sheltered.
Yeah.
Capital gains are sheltered. So you're looking for strategies to go into IRAs, 401ks, 529 plans, and other tax sheltered vehicles as much as possible, and ideally that still give you liquidity like the Roth IRA would. So it's sort of just maneuvering monies that are fully taxable into something tax sheltered so that you'll have more to show for it in the future.
It's interesting because I feel like there's a lot of people who, through this, and both parents are working, are able to save money, or you're on the other end where, unfortunately, one or both parents are unemployed, and you're not saving money. It's almost like two completely different extremes. But
Yes.
that's just in
Yeah.
conversations I've had. If someone is having a big purchase down the road here, this is something we've always debated too, and I have a credit card. I have one credit card, right? And I get miles, on it. So I like to do that, but sometimes my wife says, "Hey, let's just pay it. Don't even put it on a credit card." Pros and cons both ways. What do you tell your clients here?
I would say if you're the type of person that 100% is able to make sure that they pay off their credit card at the end of the month,
Right.
and you have the money already set aside for this large purchase, like for example, your air conditioning goes down or something like that, you have something coming up. I see no problem at all, in fact, putting on a credit card and paying it in full at the end of the month and earning all these travel points. And there's some really great options out there right now. Like for example, one to pay attention to, because I really like especially a card that has no annual fee. Like for example, Chase has one right now, and that you can earn up to 3% on things like grocery spend, and then there's no annual fee. And for those who actually have a balance that need to transfer it out, I think they even have a 0% transfer balance on it. But stuff like that, I mean, you might as well earn points on your spend and keep it and use it for things like maybe you're going to do some travel at the end of the year or next year. Something safe, could be an Airbnb, whatever it may be, but store those points so you have something to show for it. I even
And it helps
uh,
your credit, right? When not to interrupt you, but I mean, if you pay it off, I mean, it's only going to boost your credit score.
it will, like, temporarily, if you go gangbusters and open too many credit cards, definitely not a good idea. But if occasionally you open a credit card and you pay it off and you're really responsible with it, absolutely will benefit you and your family. And that's another thing a lot of people don't realize. A lot of credit cards allow you to add authorized users as young as age 13. So like my oldest is going to be turning 12 next year, and eventually I'll probably get a credit card for him. Won't let him use it like all the time, but put a little bit of balance, pay it off, help him build credit history too.
Ah, that young. I didn't know you could do that. Oh, that's a good idea. All
Mhm.
right. One for the road here. This is kind of, I guess, not really money tied, but just shining online. What we're doing right here, right? How do I impress the boss? How do I, I'm lucky to have a job, but I'm still interested, obviously, in advancing my career. But I'm not in the office. He or she can't see me all the time. Maybe one tip or two tips that you would give to people at home who, through this, want to obviously rise up in their career and do more great things. What would you tell them?
Well, I think this is a great question, Mike. And we've been hearing a lot about this because a lot of companies are doing layoffs. In fact, we had several calls last week at a major television studio, employees are getting laid off left and right. And one of the things that you can do to stand out is obviously build your social media presence. Start with LinkedIn. Make sure you have a great photo, a great bio, and make sure you get all your colleagues and people that you know to put in endorsements of you right now publicly on LinkedIn. Now, that is great because people are definitely much more charitable and empathetic right now. They're willing to do that. And the second thing is think about ways that you can really create content or have a voice beyond your day job so that people know what it is that you do and what you're passionate about, because that could create a second or third income stream. Like I actually spoke with a executive at a major company here in Los Angeles, and as her side job, she actually coordinates weddings. And she said, I got that because I said, I think a lot of wedding coordinators should do this and this and this. And someone found me on one of the social media platforms that I was on and reached out and says, would you be interested in coordinating weddings? So, I think the thing is you have to realize that employers don't know to find you. And so you need to be out there constantly sharing your insight. And most important, shining a light on other people is very beneficial, not only for you today, and it's the right thing to do, but it
Yeah.
could help you find that next job.
Great way to end it. Winnie Sun, Managing Director of Sun Group Wealth Partners. Always a pleasure, Winnie, for joining us. Thank you very much. Have a safe week.
Thank you, Mike. Take care.